Hello guys, I just want to very quickly go through McGraw-Hill chapters 39 and 40. The short chapters, this is going to be a short lecture. The observations they make are fairly obvious, I think. So what I might do is simply go through the examples. Now, look at the example at the bottom of page 646 there. He claims Watchman is better, I that Iron Man is. Now, you can just about make out what's intended here, but it's not very clear, is it? It's really two sentences, isn't it? He claims Watchman is better. Better than what? It's not stated in that sentence. You need to say what something is better than. Now, you see this in advertising a lot. Our brand of cereal is the best. Well, I don't know, that's a terrible example, actually. Our brand of cereal is better. 30% better. Great. But better than what? Unless you say so, well, your brand of cereal might be 30% better than beating yourself with a stick. Well, okay, but that's not much of a comparison. Sometimes words are missing, and it's clear that I'm doing the claiming in the second half there. I, that Iron Man is, but I think you should keep the verb. I claim that Iron Man is. And we might do better by saying, he claims Watchman is better than any other movie. I claim that Iron Man is better than any other movie. Suddenly it's a lot clearer. Okay, the example at the top of page 647 here is quite subtle. You might not immediately see where the problem is. Commuting in carpools, train or bus can help reduce the nation's consumption of oil. Now, you understand what's meant, but it's not clear. Because although you might commute in a carpool, you more typically commute by train or by bus. So let's put the prepositions back in. Commuting in carpools, by train or by bus can help reduce the nation's consumption of oil. That can often be left out, but sometimes when it is, we end up with what's called a garden path sentence. Many companies suggest their employees carpool or take mass transit to work. Now, this is grammatically accurate, but you initially feel that the companies are going to suggest their employees for something. And it's only when you get to the second half of the sentence that you realize the companies are suggesting that the employees do something. So let's put the that back in, and we're not being led up the garden path anymore. That's why they're called garden path sentences. Many companies suggest that their employees carpool, etc. Comparisons, clear and complete. Carpooling is more energy efficient. Well, it might be, but again, it might be more energy efficient than beating yourself with a stick. What's it more energy efficient than? If you're going to start a comparison, finish the comparison. By the way, this chapter also mentions the word so. The guy is so cool. Now, increasingly, I do understand so is being used as a synonym for very. I am so happy that you got into graduate school, or whatever. But so is the initial part of a comparative, usually. Or correlative, anyway. I am so happy that I jumped for joy when I heard that you got into college. So, yeah. Let's see. Examples on page 648. The gang members neither cooperated nor listened to the authorities. I think that cooperated needs another preposition. The gang members neither cooperated with nor listened to the authorities. Now, the second example there with the performers, you don't need to put any extra prepositions in because you can sing for an hour and you can stand for an hour. So you can say the performers stood and sang for an hour without interruption. No correction needed. But if the verbs are happiest with two different prepositions, put them in. Now, you might think, well, since fly is in the first clause, why should I put it in the second clause? The boss flies first class, the rest of us economy class. But the boss flies, the rest of us fly. So because it's two different forms of the verb, we need to keep both forms. The boss flies first class, the rest of us fly economy class. Same with the verb to be if it's being used in two different ways. So at the bottom of the page there, page 648, we have the verb to be as a linking verb and also as an auxiliary. I am happy, I am planning to work. In that case, you have to repeat the am. I am happy to help and I'm planning to work with you until we finish. It would be awkward to drop the second am. Okay. 39C on page 649, we spoke about that. The frequent necessity of keeping the that even if it's not necessary. And 39D, comparisons. Now look at the sentence provided 2/3 of the way down, page 649. I loved my grandmother more than my sister. Now think about it. This is ambiguous. Is it that you love your grandmother more than you love your sister? Or does your sister love your grandmother more than you do? It's not clear. So we can remove the ambiguity by adding the correct verb. I loved my grandmother more than my sister did. Ah, now we see what's meant. I loved my grandmother more than I loved my sister. Aha, there's the other meaning. So be sure that your sentences are unambiguous. Try to keep it one verb, one subject. Let's see. Now, you might not entirely see what's wrong with the sentence at the top of page 650 until you think about it. High schools and colleges stage the Laramie Project more than any play. Now, the problem is the Laramie Project is a play. So it's included in the second set. So you're kind of saying the high school students, high schools and colleges are staging the Laramie Project more often than they're staging the Laramie Project and any other play, which is illogical. So to solve that illogicality, put the word other in. High schools and colleges stage the Laramie Project more than any other play. Aha, problem solved. Okay. Do exercise 39.1. I think it's an excellent exercise and worth doing to hammer home those points. Right, chapter 40, again, another short one. This is sort of a catch-all chapter, so rather than say that there's a major point to this, I'm simply going to say there are some excellent example sentences here that show how students can mix up sentences inadvertently. So let's take a look at the example, the first example on page 652, marked mixed up sentences. For family members who enjoy one another's company often decide on a vacation spot together. Now your ear hopefully has told you there's something badly wrong with that sentence. The problem is it's opening with a prepositional phrase. And a prepositional phrase cannot act as a subject. It can't act as a noun phrase. And that prepositional phrase is then followed by a verb phrase, often decide on a vacation spot together. Now, you can easily solve this. Drop the preposition and what's left is a noun phrase, and that can be used as the subject. Family members who enjoy one another's company often decide on a vacation spot together. Ah, problem solved. Now, I'm going to jump over to the top of page 654 and caution you. Be very afraid and be ready to revise if you ever write a sentence that runs is where, is when, the reason is, or worse still, is the reason that, or is because. This leads to dreadful ambiguity, and it's easily solved, but we'll see in a moment. When is an example of this as well. Let's go to the bottom of page 652. In Mexican culture, when a curandero is consulted, can address spiritual or physical illness. Now, the verb phrase can address spiritual or physical illness demands a noun phrase before it, but instead we have an entire phrase, when a curandero is consulted, or we have an incorrect noun phrase, Mexican culture. Now, hopefully it's clear to you that the noun phrase is clearly the curandero. So you could solve it, well, in any way. Let's take a look at the solutions at the top of page 653. In Mexican culture, a curandero can be consulted for spiritual or physical illness. In Mexican culture, when people suffer from spiritual or physical illness, they consult a curandero. In Mexican culture, the curandero's role is to address people's spiritual and physical illnesses. All three excellent solutions. But remember, a verb phrase demands a noun phrase. You cannot put a prepositional phrase in that spot, and you can't put a whole clause in that spot. 40b, bottom of page 653, predicates and subjects. Now, you'll understand the sentence at the bottom of page 653, but hopefully you'll understand that it's also ambiguous and faulty. The best kind of education for me would be a university with both a school of music and a school of government. Now, the problem is you have the verb to be, and you have a concept as the opening noun phrase, the best kind of education, and you have a concrete noun phrase as the predicate, a university with both a school of music, etc. Now, if you're going to equate two things, if one is a concept, then the other must be a concept. If one is a concrete noun phrase, the other must be a noun phrase. How can we solve this? Well, we can put an adjective phrase into the predicate, which we can do with the verb to be. I quite like the revision at the top of page 654. A university with both a school of music and a school of government would be best for me. I like that. Now, I spoke about the is, where, is, when, the reason is earlier. Let's look at the faulty examples. The two faulty examples on page 654. My computer just made an awful noise. I don't know why. It seems to have stopped, so fine. Photosynthesis is where carbon dioxide, water, and chlorophyll interact. Photosynthesis is a chemical process. It's not a place. So you cannot say photosynthesis is where. Take a look at the solution. Photosynthesis is the production of carbohydrates, blah, blah, blah. Excellent solution. Now, take a look at the faulty sentence halfway down the page. The reason the joint did not hold is because the coupling bolt broke. Now, it's understandable, but it's a really awkward sentence. Instead, why not simply put the coupling bolt breakage first and have something like, I'm sorry, let's keep the joint in the opening position. The joint did not hold because the coupling bolt broke. Suddenly it's a lot clearer. You don't need the word, the reason is, at all. Okay, again, exercise 40.1 is an excellent exercise, and I'd recommend you to do that on your own. And I will leave that. So hope you got some use out of this, and I'll be talking to you all soon.